It started with tire marks across my lawn almost every weekend. The HOA president's spoiled son would speed to the neighborhood in his bright red sports car, like the entire street belonged to him. Fresh grass, flower beds, sprinklers, none of it mattered to him. Every time those tires ripped across my yard, it felt personal. I spent years building that lawn into something I was proud of, and in seconds he destroyed it without a second thought. At first, I tried handling things politely. I spoke to him calmly near his driveway and asked him to stay off my property. He smirked, laughed, and drove away before I even finished talking. The next weekend he came back and did it again, spinning his tires harder this time like he wanted me to react. That's when I realized this wasn't just reckless behavior anymore. He enjoyed humiliating people because nobody ever challenged him. I eventually attended an HOA meeting carrying printed photos of the damage, repair receipts, and video clips from my security cameras. But the moment I started speaking, his mother, the HOA president herself, interrupted me with a smile and called it harmless teenage fun. The room went quiet. Some neighbors looked uncomfortable, but nobody said anything. She acted like the rules only applied to everyone except her family. That night, I stood outside staring at the destroyed grass while sprinklers sprayed water over muddy tire marks. I was angry, but I also knew losing control would only hurt me. Revenge without patience usually backfires. So instead of reacting emotionally, I started documenting everything carefully. A few days earlier, city utility workers had inspected part of my property because of unstable underground drainage near the edge of the lawn. There was an old collapse forming beneath the surface. The area was considered dangerous until repairs could eventually be scheduled. The second I remembered that inspection report, an idea formed in my mind. I placed visible warning stakes around the unstable section and installed temporary safety fencing near the soft ground. Then I mailed certified warning letters directly to the HOA office, explaining the hazard clearly. I took photos of every sign, every barrier, and every document. Legally, I made sure everything was impossible to deny later. But the warnings only made the HOA president angry. Her son joked openly about doing donuts on my lawn again. They treated the entire situation like a joke because they thought their position protected them from consequences. That arrogance became their biggest mistake. Saturday afternoon arrived exactly like every other weekend. Loud music echoed through the neighborhood before I even saw the car. Then the red sports car came flying down the street again. Neighbors turned their heads immediately because everyone already knew what was about to happen. He didn't slow down when he reached my property. He smashed directly through the temporary fencing while laughing out the open window. Pieces of it scattered across the yard as his tires tore through the grass once again. Then, within seconds, the ground underneath the car suddenly collapsed. The front half of the lawn dropped instantly into a massive sinkhole hidden beneath the surface. Dirt exploded upward while the sports car slammed nose first into the collapse. Steam and smoke poured from the damaged engine as shocked neighbors screamed and backed away. For the first time since this entire situation started, the spoiled teenager looked terrified instead of arrogant. Police officers and emergency crews arrived minutes later. His mother showed up screaming at everyone nearby and immediately blamed me for the accident. But once officers examined the warning signs, fencing inspection reports, and certified letters, the entire story changed direction. Every single warning I gave had been documented properly. The officers reviewed timestamps, photographs, and official city notices right there on the sidewalk. Suddenly, the HOA president wasn't yelling anymore. She looked nervous because the evidence clearly showed her family ignored repeated warnings before driving onto private property anyway. Meanwhile, neighbors slowly started speaking up too. One elderly couple shared security footage showing the teenager intentionally driving across several lawns over the previous months. Another resident described damaged flower beds and broken mailboxes caused by reckless driving. Story after story came out once people realized they finally had proof. Within days, local news stations picked up the story. The image of a luxury sports car trapped inside a suburban sinkhole spread everywhere online. Reporters described it as a preventable accident caused by reckless behavior and ignored warnings. The HOA president's carefully controlled reputation started collapsing almost as fast as the lawn itself. The pressure inside the neighborhood became impossible for her to manage. Residents demanded accountability during emergency HOA meetings. Complaints poured into the office daily. People who stayed silent for years suddenly felt comfortable sharing their own experiences dealing with favoritism and intimidation. While everything unfolded publicly, I stayed quiet and organized. My lawyer reviewed every document and told me the same thing repeatedly. I handled everything legally and responsibly. The unstable ground had been reported. Warnings were clearly posted. Safety barriers were installed, and the driver knowingly ignored all of it before entering private property. Eventually, the destroyed sports car was removed from the sinkhole by a tow crew while neighbors watched from the sidewalks. Seeing it lifted out of the ground felt strangely satisfying. Not because I enjoyed someone else's loss, but because consequences had finally caught up to someone who believed rules didn't apply to him. City repair crews later fixed the underground drainage collapse and rebuilt the damaged section of lawn completely. Over time, the grass returned healthier than before. More importantly, the neighborhood itself started changing too. A month later, residents voted for entirely new HOA leadership. The old president lost badly. Years of arrogance and favoritism had finally caught up with her. After that, she rarely spoke to anyone around the neighborhood anymore. The new HOA board immediately enforced fair rules for everyone equally. Reckless driving stopped completely. Community meetings became calm and respectful instead of tense and intimidating. Families spent more time outside again. Kids played safely in the streets. The entire atmosphere changed once people felt fairness had finally returned. By the end of summer, my lawn looked beautiful again. Fresh grass covered every repaired section. Flowers bloomed along the walkway, and neighbors regularly stopped to compliment the yard while chatting peacefully. Looking back, I realized I never truly wanted revenge. I only wanted respect. And in the end, patience, preparation, and the truth accomplished far more than anger ever could. Backhand Index Pointing Right like and subscribe for more satisfying HOA stories. Backhand Index Pointing Right comment below. What would you have done in this situation? Backhand Index Pointing Right. And where are you watching from today?